You're watching Bophelong, a place of hope, right here on SABC News. My name is Pile Molebati. A very good afternoon to you. South Africa and the rest of the world commemorates Dr. Nelson Mandela's passing by highlighting events that made history and touched their lives. From us here on Bophelong, we remember just how Madiba was fond of children. Today we bring you the story of Thando Manyati, who was born with an extremely rare congenital neurological disorder called Mobius syndrome. This type of neurological disorder is characterized by facial paralysis and the inability to move the eye from one side to another. After writing letters for 2 years to Dr. Nelson Mandela, Thando's mother was about to give up when she finally received a call from Madiba himself, who was more than willing to assist the family. Let's have a look.
Mobius syndrome is a rare disease that causes facial paralysis. With little knowledge about the disease, Thabile Malamo Manyati's daughter, Thando Manyati, was born with the unusual facial paralysis, causing her facial muscles to be stiff and restrict movement or any form of facial expressions. Born and bred in Maryvale, east of Johannesburg, Thando struggled to laugh and play with children in a neighborhood because of a lack of facial expressions.
I couldn't sit with other kids at school because they were asking me, why am I like this? And why am I talking like this? Why are my eyes tiny and why?
Thando's mother felt the pain of her daughter and sought help from former President Nelson Mandela.
It was difficult for me to eat, and people would stare at me and ask me, why do I eat like this?
2 years later, Thando's mother received a response that would change her child's life. A surgery was booked for Thando at the Charlotte Maxeke Hospital.
She wrote a lot, but I think she wrote 2 or 3 to Mandela. My mom was talking to Nelson Mandela.
Nelson Mandela personally called Mark Lubner, the co-founder of the Smile Foundation, to assist in finding a world-class surgeon for Thando.
I started the Smile Foundation in the year 2000 in response to a request that I received from the then President Nelson Mandela. He had received a letter, erroneously, a letter that had appeared on his family mail pile from Thando Malambo Manyati's mother, who reminded him of an obligation that he had made, a commitment that he had made to help her child receive surgery, very complex surgery. The child had a facial paralysis condition called Mobius syndrome, and Madiba had promised to try and help.
Thando's lack of ability to eat, drink and laugh caused her great pain.
Her speech isn't 100% perfect. So what we've done is, as a follow-up, we were able to assist with her getting further training, computer skills training, and more recently we in fact employed her within the Smile Foundation some 12, 13 years after she had her first procedure. We were able to bring her in to the organization, and she's got a job of work here that she's measured on. She has to perform the same that all of our other staff have to.
The rare disease does not only target the facial muscles, but can take a toll on a child's emotions.
The hospitals didn't have necessarily the budget, and that's where we stepped in and started to provide a coordinated approach, and also an approach where the kids were treated like kids. It's frightening for these kids to come to these huge monolithic structures and for the first time face a surgeon in theatre. So we started to bring in, let's call it the child-friendly element.
Reserved and shy, Thando has kept her surgery a mystery to her peers, as some of her friends don't know that she had a facial reanimation surgery.
Some of my friends that do know, some they don't know. Some of them, they were there for me in the hospital when I did the operation.
Having to deal with mockery and physical insecurities, the Smile Foundation understands precisely the needs and reaffirmations of children affected with the disease.
We would consult to the kids, we would give them counselling before, the families counselling before. We'd bring in clowns on the days that they were registering or checking into the hospital for their surgeries. We'd look after them. We'd give them pajamas. We would follow up with workshops, psychological workshops, and follow up on further surgeries that were needed. And we just wanted them to feel that there was somebody who loved them.
Sourcing children from different rural settlements, Smile Foundation conducts outreaches for isolated and disadvantaged children.
They will see kids in their various clinics, but they won't necessarily always have the facilities to be able to operate on them. They've got the willingness, they've got the desire, but the state budget is so limited. If you can imagine, at the turn of apartheid, you had a few hospital facilities that were catering for a privileged few in South Africa, now being open to all of South Africans. So the state hospital response was to look at primary health care primarily. And elective surgery, cleft lip and palate, burns, nasal reconstruction, ear reconstructive surgery, was not considered life-threatening. So typically those type of procedures would be put on the back burner.
Mark saw a need for more surgeries in South Africa and used his networks to help more children.
I used that network to try and locate what was then the world's leading surgeon in the field of Meniere's syndrome. It's a facial paralysis condition where where the surgeons remove a piece of the gracilis muscle from within the leg and they implant the muscle into the facial cavity, and it's very complex because you have to reconnect. Not only do you have to run a nerve through the muscle, you've got to reconnect veins to ensure that the blood supply keeps that muscle alive. And the skill didn't exist in this country.
Thando is the instigator of the Smile Foundation, which is now helping thousands of children with reanimation surgeries across the country.
Grateful. I'm glad that now I'm not the only one who's being helped by the fund.
Thando recalls the excitement of Nelson Mandela visiting her in hospital.
It was great to meet the president of South Africa. And first time I was in shock to go to his house, because the first time when I went there, he was a statue. So when I had to give him a handshake, it was scary for me for the first time. Then I got used to it.
She now visits and coordinates parties for others in hospital as a reflection of her gratitude.
It was a Christmas party at Joburg Jane. Now it's called Charlotte McGregor. There I was helping Belinda to we started to decorate the ward for the children, and then Santa Claus came, and then we were busy giving the patients presents, and then they were taking pictures with Santa Claus.
After the break, we'll look at how Thando helped thousands of children through the Smile Foundation.
There's a lot of corruption there. What are you doing with that?
The word corruption is actually misplaced.
Any elements of corruption must be rooted out and punished accordingly.
SASCO is denying that there's any evidence of such.
We've heard the allegations about students not assisting the situation.
Why do you have to be pressurized to do your job, Mr. Msulu?
We spend everything that we get given by government.
It's an excuse.
Who's failing you at government?
Who's failing us at government?
Who's not heeding your call?
The government is the government.
Is Dr. Blade Nzimande doing well?
With what he has done, we want him to do more. We want him to deliver more.
So he's failing.
The Minister of Higher Education, don't put words in my mouth.
Watch Question Time with me, Mpho Tsedu, Monday to Thursday at 5:30 p.m. on the SABC News Channel.
In Parliament, Higher Education and Training Minister Blade Nzimande has conceded that the bursary scheme is not enough to meet the growing demand from students.
Funding for universities is not enough. We'll be open about that. We will continue to ask for more from government as a department.
We've always said that the NSFAS budget must be 16 billion rand and that no qualifying student must be prevented from studying just because they cannot afford to do so.
There's been concern about citrus exports to Europe and investment contracts.
There are more.
Welcome back to Bophelong, a place of hope. Before the break, we met Thando Manyati, who had facial reanimation surgery through the help of Tata Nelson Mandela. Thando can now smile, eat, drink, and blink, and is helping thousands of children to smile through the Smile Foundation. The foundation raises funds through their Smile Trust for children that are unable to afford the facial reanimation surgery.
Tabile's courage rubbed off to Thando as she is now independent and an employee at the Smile Foundation. She is now a voice to many that await surgery.
At the Smile Foundation, I pack for the Smile Week, and then at the finance I do administration work.
Thando's remarkable story has influenced many, and currently a children's hospital is being built to assist children with different medical conditions.
There was this waiting list that was developing longer and longer, and you were getting kids at the age of 12, 15, 16 who were not getting access to surgery. And the psychological effect on a child who doesn't receive surgery, the extended medical impact, dental, for argument's sake, speech impact, etc. If you can operate early on, you can avoid a lot of those types of problems and cost.
Mark witnessed the help given to Thando as she now interacts comfortably with everyone.
Thando's been a remarkable story because she was the first child, as I say, to receive this surgery. And bear in mind, there were two procedures that were effectively 6 months apart. Both the facial cavities were devoid of the necessary muscle that was needed to actually be able to talk or to eat. So she actually had two procedures done, and there's no doubt that the procedures improved over time, both in effectiveness and in terms of the ability of the kids to be seen not to have been surgically impacted.
The Smile Foundation has a dedicated Smile Week for children with any form of facial paralysis. The event happens annually to conduct surgery.
It was a concentrated week where the hospitals would allocate 2, sometimes even 3 surgical theatres to us. The surgeons from those state hospitals, sometimes complemented and supplemented by other surgeons who come in from private practice, gave of their time. We would supplement the nursing staff component so that it wasn't too much of a burden on the hospitals, but we would operate at anywhere between 25 to sometimes 40 odd children within the course of a week.
South African nurses and doctors are trained for all critical surgeries, increasing their skills within our hospitals and raising awareness to the general public about the severity of the disease.
He just did whatever he could with whatever
we put up the money and we brought them here to South Africa to perform the surgery. And we decided whilst the surgeons were here that there were so many other thousands and thousands of children who came from disadvantaged backgrounds, who also faced facial deformities, that we needed to try and do something to assist these kids.
Support groups are formed to bring awareness and educate people from all walks of life.
We have support groups that necessarily Friends of the Cleft, for argument's sake, will be launching hopefully next year Friends of Smile to ensure that any child or any parent who has got a child who has these is born with these facial deformities gets to speak to another mother about what's the road ahead, what is the journey to get a child, repaired.
The Mandela Magic has touched many lives through Thando's letters. Now proud to be the first child to receive surgery, Thando is grateful to her mother and Tata Nelson Mandela.
She helped me in a way now that now I can smile, I can talk to people. So people won't stare at me like they used to stare at me. Now I can close my mouth and I'm able to talk clearly. People can hear me.
Around her colleagues at work, Thando is no different. She has also taken up a role model position by educating others about positive living and believing.
She's great. She's mainly involved in, we keep records. And we've moved on to an electronic system, filing system. So the first thing that she did was to date sequence all the photographs over the years that we had collected onto an electronic platform. She helps us with a lot of the administrative work around this office, where there's accounts that need obviously to be recorded, recons that need to be reviewed. So it's mainly administrative work, and interestingly enough, more recently she's actually been relieving it on the switchboard. So for somebody who couldn't speak at all, she now has a beautiful manner. And if you call in on the phone, you would never know that you're speaking to somebody who, as I say, 12, 13 years ago wasn't even able to talk.
Mark has been more positive to Thando's career path and gives all necessary advice.
It's an amazing story about, frankly, how I think when the universe wants something to happen, it happens.
My dream is to be a leader.
After the break, we talked to Dr. Tiny Mhinga, one of the trustees of the Nelson Mandela Children's Hospital. Welcome back to Bophelong. Before the break, we witnessed an amazing and inspiring life story of Thando Manyati, whose life improved after a facial reanimation surgery. In celebration of Dada Nelson Mandela's greatness, our producer Nombuso Mahlangu sat down with Dr. Tiny Mhinga to chat about Nelson Mandela's dream to build a children's hospital within the Southern Hemisphere.
Thank you, Doctor, for having us. How far are we to seeing the opening of the Nelson Mandela Children's Hospital?
I think we're on target. 2016 will be the year. I mean, this is 2014, so we still have one more year. 2016 will be the year.
What are the key areas that the hospital will be focusing on?
It's a specialist hospital. It's not like your day-to-day kind of hospital. It's a referral hospital. All the cases that will be seen there will be strictly on referral. But our policy, the policy as it was stated by him, is that no child should be sent back. So whoever gets referred, whether they have the money or not, if they're referred to the hospital, they will be seen. But not just on ordinary things. It has to be a specialist. Some of those rare conditions that we hardly ever see going to a standard hospital.
As a doctor and trustee, how critical is it to have such facilities that solely focus on children?
Well, I think it is important. We sort of, lagging behind the South Africans, maybe as Africans. We need more of these kind of facilities in the continent. Just to give you a bit of a background, other countries away from here, away from this continent, they have got enough. Some of the countries have up to about 19 dedicated hospitals for children alone. This is dedicated hospitals. We don't have. Children in this continent still have to beg for space in the so-called adult hospitals. And I think the old man, this was not enough for him to have just one or two wards that are dedicated to children. It's not just the ward, it's the reception, it's the hospital, it's the theaters. Everything has to be just for the children.
I also understand that Dr. Nelson Mandela personally called you. What were some of his instructions to you?
It was very difficult and at the same time very emotional when you get a call from a person of his state, to say, please come to my house for lunch. I looked at myself and said, what have I done? I know I haven't done anything different from anybody else, but he happened to call me. He called that the late Dr. Mochana and myself, we sat around the table and I said, you are the doctors here, you have to try and help. We can't afford the situation where a country like ourselves can go on without the children's hospital. You have to put plans, we want to have a children's hospital. And of course, I was instructed to go to France and look at some of the options, see the various hospitals, and this was sponsored by the French embassy, where they took us to various centers in France where they have this kind of a children's hospital.
What criteria will be followed for the admission of children to the hospital?
Firstly, the most important thing, you just have to be a child to be admitted there, and a sick child to be admitted there, and of course to have a good referral with a motivation from wherever you are. Of course, we in his mind, he wanted this to be, still wants this to be a Southern African children's hospital to cater for all the children in Southern Africa. We have one hospital in Cape Town, which is the Red Cross, but obviously it doesn't cater for all the children. It's in the Western Cape, but we still have so many children around the country and in Southern Africa, which of course are lagging behind as well in terms of looking after the children.
At some stage, there were calls for donations for the hospitals. Are you succeeding in this regard?
We have made a call, and I'm making a call to you even today as you're interviewing me. If you remember this number and SMS this number, 40301, it will only cost you 20 rands, and I'm going to start with you. We need that money. You'll be the first one today to contribute, and we want everybody or anybody who's got a 20 rands just to donate these 20 rands to this fund, because we need this money. To date, we're just below 600 million. We only need 1 billion. We'll be able to build and equip this hospital so that we can open it up in 2016. And that's all that we're asking from our public, from all the listeners and people who are watching us today, to make that kind of a commitment. We don't have to go beyond 20 rands. 20 rands, SMS 4.
Can South Africa help in making his dream come true?
We owe it to him. By the way, for him, it was not just only about this hospital. In his mind, he wanted this to go beyond South Africa, that this should be a good example of what can be done when people, companies, governments put their minds together. This can be replicated in all the provinces. Number one, it can be duplicated in all the other countries in Africa. They have to start looking after the children. Yes, they can send in the meantime here to South Africa, but surely he wants this to be replicated in all the countries in Africa, so that people should learn and have respect for the children of their respective countries. So we have a lot of work to do. It's not an impossible task. We just have to come together, have a good relationship with the respective governments, with the public, with the business in the respective countries. We should be able to build such kind of facilities for our own children and the future.
Thank you, Doctor, for having us.
You're welcome, my darling.
You can also be part of Tata's legacy by placing donations to the Nelson Mandela's Children's Hospital. SMS gift to 40301. Should you wish to get in touch with us, you can do so on the details on the bottom of your screen. From us here on Bophelong, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Till next time, goodbye.